The year is 2026. Most gaming companies have totally lost the trust of players. AAA gaming has become a joke. But sometimes a game comes out and makes us remember what we actually lost. It is time to talk about Resident Evil Requiem.
Resident Evil Requiem released on the 27th of February. It received really good reviews from both critics and players. I'm not a long-time fan of the series, as my first Resident Evil game was the remake of the third one, and I only later played the other ones. This game being so great, I had a lot of expectations for Requiem, and oh boy did it deliver. Though don't get me wrong, the game is not perfect, and we'll see just that in that review. So grab some snacks, sit comfortably, and enjoy. The game opens on a cinematic presenting us the new protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, and I think this cinematic does a good job of presenting her to us. Right away we can notice that she's quite the nervous type, and that she seems to have a troubled past. Here, I won't spoil too much, but me bringing up her nervous personality is important for this review, as you guys will see later on. But first, let's focus on performances. Right away, the graphics slaps you in your face, as the level of details is quite insane. I mean, you guys can judge for yourself, but for me, it's basically black magic. The fact that the models are so well detailed and the game runs so well is like amazing. And that is even with the reflection and general lighting. Now that's how you make AAA graphics. Yeah, and you guys will see that this sentiment is really strong in the first part of the game, even though it dims out on later parts of the game. But you guys will see just that in just a moment. So we are sent to investigate in an hotel. And just like that, the tutorial part of the game begins. And right away, let me just say, the cinematic was a joke compared to this. On my 5070, it was wonderful. And so fluid as well. Literal eye candy. And even though nothing interesting happened here, it was still really cool to walk in the town. Now is a really good time, I think, to bring up something. The game leaves you the choice to basically play in FPS mode or third person mode. I'm not really a fan of FPS horror games, so I choose to play in third person for the entirety of my playthrough. And I'm really glad I did, because I can see literally Grace shake when she's afraid. I mean, look at that. And I think it really adds to the atmosphere of the game, not gonna lie. Another thing that is important to point out is the choice of modern versus classic difficulty. Basically, in modern, you get to save your game as much as you want. But in classic, just like in older Resident Evil game, you need an ink ribbon to save your game. I think that's a good idea that Capcom did what they did there, by letting player choose. As a survival horror veteran, I went with the classic option. But as cool as this idea sounds, it would later turn out to be disappointing. But first, I have to go into detail about the first part of the game. So right now, let's do just that. The first part of the game is heavily survival horror oriented, and I'm all here for it. I mean, I love this kind of games. But I think you might have noticed that this part was meant to be played in FPS mode. And it sometimes causes problem, especially when a cinematic plays and you are randomly in FPS mode. It's not a huge problem, but it kinda ruins the immersion sometimes. And I wish the devs had thought about it. Other than that, the atmosphere of the game was really well made at this point. Like, I mean, look at it. I was genuinely scared for the first time playing a Resident Evil game. And I'll explain just why I think this is the case. First, there is this one chase part where you have nothing but a lighter. You can't really defend yourself against this thing. So, it adds to the stress. Second thing that works really well is how Grace reacts to the stuff that is happening to her. It sets the mood really well. And finally, the last part that works really well for me is how the zombies still act a tiny bit human. Like you've got the maid that is cleaning frantically, or the chief that is chopping meat very loudly. They still have a personality of their own. The place you get to explore is really fun to backtrack in as well. There was lots of hidden things in it, and really cool stuff to find. You weren't always safe in it, even if you killed all the zombies, as sometimes some of these would raise as splitter heads. There is a way to prevent that, notably with the injector, but you could also use that resource to kill a zombie in stealth. Which brings me to my next point, resources management. On that point, I'm kinda mixed, because some of these resources are rare, and that's a good thing. But once you get the blood injector and get to craft your own stuff, you are basically loaded on everything, and that's a bad thing. It ruins the survival in the survival horror. I'm also a bit disappointed in the puzzle parts of the game. They are really not that clever, and some of them repeats again and again. The only one I found really cool was the one in the basement, where you basically get batteries that you use to open specific parts of the level, sometimes requiring you of finding a way around to get your battery back. In conclusion, I'd say that the rest part of the game is survival oriented and really scary. Exploring the different parts of the level was really cool, as well as backtracking it. Resources management was mostly fine, my only problem with this part being the puzzles that weren't really clever. Now, let's talk about the second part of the game. The second part plays way different than the first one. First, you switch up characters for Leon Scott Kennedy, a character that is a staple of the series. But how does it change the general feel of the game? Well, first, it is more action-oriented with Leon. And there is a thing that is really disappointing about that fact, is that the classic mode limited save are basically gone when you get to this point. The atmosphere also suffers a lot in this part. The zombies have zero personality and there is way less scary moment. So I think that this part really suffers as a result. But I'll judge it at what it is, just like Resident Evil 4, and if I judge it like that, it does the job, but still it's not great, really. To me it felt like the first part was so high up there in fact, that the second part, while good, was just bad in comparison. Even the puzzle were even worse. It just got down to get that random item, use it at that random spot, which is okay I guess, but really not great. Now let's talk about the action some more. It was really more dynamic than Resident Evil 4 remake. You can parry a lot more stuff and even finish the enemies that you threw on the ground. But while it works okay, it misses the personality of Resident Evil 4's iconic Ganados. So this part for me was a lot less rememberable. Though there was something I really enjoyed in that part, it's the boss fights. They each have their own cool gimmicks, and for me, it was at this part that the action was at its best. And thanks God it's the case, because if it wasn't, Leon's part would have been really mid at best. Now that being said, I think it's time to sum it up and conclude this review. Resident Evil Requiem is overall a good game. I think its main problem is rhythm. It has a very high first part and a kinda mid second part. Let's talk about the good first. The survival part of the game are really well made and kinda next gen. On a technical and performance point, the game is flawless. On action parts, this really matters, but the action parts are not the most memorable parts of the game. It's still a really solid experience that I would suggest you to try, and I would rate it an 8 out of 10, mostly because of its solid gameplay and really interesting ideas, such as the classical mode. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like and comment, and even subscribe if you want to see more in the future. My next review is gonna be a game that I really enjoyed and I got a remake, and I have lots of stuff to say about it. So see you next time, bye!